Hello there and welcome to Luminar NEO Academy, the show where we teach you how to get the most out of this photo editing application. Now, if you've never been here before, my name is Jakub and I'm a creator and founder here at Clever Photographer. Now, before we're going to start, I have a few things I want to cover. First of all, at the end of the video, we're going to give you access to our popular Luminar NEO shortcut cheat sheet. So if you want to get that, make sure you stay until the end. Also, if you want to follow me along and do the edit on your own computer, make sure that you jump into the description, click on the link there and download the sample files. Also, if you do not own Luminar NEO, make sure you use the link in the description together with the discount code so you can get the best deal on your new purchase. And finally, we would like to ask you to please like, comment and share on this video. And also don't forget to subscribe to our channel so we can keep creating content like this. In this video tutorial, I'm going to show you how to edit this image of a Puffin, which was a winner of the Photo of the Month June contest within the Skylum community. Looking at the image, I captured it early this year, sometimes on the beginning of June, when I went for a short trip to Bampton Cliffs here in England. I'm going to share with you the full raw file so you can follow me along and see how I ended up with this result. We have a lot to do, so let's jump into Luminar NEO and let's start. So as you can see, once again, we are in Luminar NEO and we are in a catalog module. We are starting by looking at the sample file, and once again, if you want to follow me along, all you need to do is to jump into the description of the video, click on the link there, and that will bring you into our Dropbox account. From there, you can download the file and follow me and do the edit on your own computer. First of all, let's start by clicking on the image to select it. And then let's have a look at the image itself and more details about how I capture it. For that, we need to navigate to the left bottom of our screen and click on the little eye icon here so we can see more details of the image. So here, of course, you can see that it's a Puffin edit. That's the name of the file. It's in DNG format, which is a raw file. You can also see it here. And there are some details about how I capture it. So because it was a little lower light situation and I was looking for quite fast shutter speed, I went for the ISO 640. I used 600mm lens. Then I was on f6.3 and the shutter speed as the Puffin was sitting was 1/640th of a second. I used my Sony a7R Mark IV and I had a lens with me which was 200 to 600mm. So this is about it. It's a full raw file, once again, over 9000 pixels on the long edge and 63 megabytes. So we're gonna have lots of fun with it. Once we're ready, we can close this and we simply move the image into edit module by clicking on the edit on the top of our screen or hitting E on our keyboard. In the edit module, the first thing we need to do is to develop the file. So for this, we're gonna be heading to our main toolbar, essential tools and the develop raw tool. Now, if you notice, the Develop Raw tool only appears when you edit raw files in the Edit module. If you're editing your JPEGs, PNGs, TIFFs, you will have the classic Develop tool here. So for us, let's click on the Develop Raw tool, and it will open with many different sections. This is also a great idea for me to show you how to develop tool directly in Luminar NEO. Our first steps should be heading towards the Optics section. Let's click on it to open it, and the first thing you need to do is to make sure that each of these boxes are checked. The first check helps us to do some distortion correction, the second check helps us with chromatic aberration, and then also we adjust some of the difference. Now looking at the image, there is not really a problem with any lens distortion, vignetting, so we don't have to worry about the rest of the sliders. Once we finish with the optics, we simply close them and we move to the next part of the developing. At this point, I like to adjust my sharpness. So for this, we would go into the sharpness tab. However, I want to show you a very simple formula that I use for this type of photos. Now, anytime I'm adjusting my sharpness and noise, I like to make sure that I'm zooming to 100%. For this, you need to go to the bottom of your screen, click on the zoom button here and click on 100%. After that, navigate to the area where you can see some of the texture as well as the noise of the image. So right about here, we are good. We can see the texture on the beak and the bird, as well as the noise on the image, specifically in the darker areas. Now the next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna go into the noise reduction section in our Develop Raw tool, and we're gonna start by adjusting the luminosity. Traditionally, when it comes to noise on the images, there are two types. The luminosity noise, which is looking like the grain you can see on this image, and the color noise, which is not really visible here. However, you would see different colorful pixels around your image. So we know that we need to just focus on the luminosity, and you want to start quite carefully, and I would go somewhere around 15 or maybe 20. It takes a moment, however, it does quite a good job in removing the noise. So 15 is looking good. When we go to 20, do we get a nice result? I think maybe around 20 is good. Now when you go overboard with the luminosity, let's say we push it too much, we're gonna start to lose lots of details around the image. You can see how the beak and everything is starting to be very soft, so we don't want to do that. So let's stick to our 20, and we good there. Now, since we've done the noise reduction, we can close it, and we can move to the sharpness. Remember that on a noise reduction, we have added 20 on the luminosity. Now the formula for sharpening is very simple. I want you to imagine number 100. Take the 100 and minus the noise reduction. So we take the 100 minus 20 is 80. And that's how much I add to my sharpness. So in this case, I will go all the way to 80. If the image would be noisier and I would go with the noise reduction higher to something like 30 or 40, I would follow the same formula. So I would take 100, minus it with the 40 on the noise reduction, and it would equal to 60. So then I would go into the sharpness and add 60 to the sharpen slider. Now I don't have to worry about the radius slider, but with the masking we definitely want to bring it up to somewhere between 60 and 70. Now what does the masking do? Well, let's zoom out for this. And let's talk about sharpening in overall. When you push the sharpen slider up, you're basically adding sharpening to the entire image, even to the areas where there is no texture or details. So after that, with the masking, by bringing it nice and up, you make sure that the sharpening is only applied to the areas where there are details, edges, or texture. Now, since we adjusted the general optics as well as noise and sharpness, we can close the sharpness section and move to the top of the tool to the section called Camera Profile. Click on it to open it, and you will see there is a gray drop-down box here. Click on it and you will see a list of different camera profiles. Most of the time, 90% of the time, you will be fine with the Luminar default. However, if you want to, and according to your camera and software, you can try some additional profiles. For example, the Adobe Standard looks very similar to the profile created by Luminar, but you can try some others like Camera Standard, or for example, something like a Camera Landscape. It really depends on you and depends on your camera, so I suggest you to play around with it and see what you like the most. For this example, we're gonna stick with the Luminar default, and we're gonna close this section. The next section we're gonna go into is the light, and we're gonna also open the blacks and whites. The reason is that those sliders really work very close with each other, and we're gonna be adjusting them at the same time. I'm not gonna work with the exposure as the exposure is looking decent. However, I wanna add a little bit of smart contrast. But most importantly, I wanna work around with the highlights and shadows. So looking at the image, I would like to bring some of the highlights down. So basically the brightest area of the image to make them a little bit darker. So something like this. And equally with the shadows, so the darker parts of the image, I wanna open them a little bit. I don't wanna go crazy on it. So somewhere around 17 is looking good. Now while I'm adjusting the shadows, I can look at the image and the darker parts, or I can also be looking at the histogram on the top of our main toolbar. If you don't see the histogram, simply right click on the image and choose the Show Histogram. Here you can then click on the histogram and go through the different channels. However, I like to see all the channels at the same time, just like you see here, or the grayscale average, just like you see here. So for us, highlights and shadows, we want to make sure that most of the data are in the center of the histogram, or that the result on the image is looking good. The next section on our Develop Raw tool is the blacks and whites. Here we're going to be adjusting the whites and blacks on our image. Now, when you work with Lightroom or Adobe Camera Raw, you can hold the Alt or Option and then slide the sliders around to see where you clip them. However, there is not this option for Luminar NEO, so what we need to do is hit J on our keyboard, which will bring the clip-in mask, and now we can push the whites and blacks around. So for example, if I bring the whites all the way up, you will see that we get this red overlay. So that is showing us that this area is overexposed, it's over brightened, and we lost the details there. So we know that we need to bring the whites down until all the red disappears. So somewhere around 28 is looking good. Then with the blacks, similarly, when I bring them all the way down, you can see we get this blue overlay. So that means that that area is completely black and all the data is gone. So again, we're gonna bring the blacks up to make sure all the blue color disappears. So somewhere around here, once the colors disappear, you can then again look at the image, look at the histogram, and adjust the sliders to the result you like. Once you're happy with it, and I am at the moment, all I would do is I would come back to our contrast and maybe push it up a little bit. If I want to adjust the exposure, I can do that later, so I'm not going to focus on that. Let's close the light, let's close the black and white section, and we can move to the next tool here. We're going to jump over the curves as we're not going to use them, and we're going to move to the color. This part is probably the most artistic part of the photo editing. There isn't really a clear formula to tell you how you should adjust these sliders. What do you have here? You have the temperature slider where you can make your image warmer or cooler. And then you have the tint slider where you can add some green tint to your image or pink magenta tint to your image. And it really depends what do you like. You can reset the sliders by double click on their name. And you can also try one of the preset white balance here by clicking on a drop down box. You can see that there is the S shot. So that will basically return the setup of the temperature and tint sliders to the original setting of the image coming from the camera. You can also try something like daylight, cloudy, shade, and so on. So let's bring it back to S shot. The additional option here is the eyedrop tool, and you can simply click on it and then choose a white point on your image to pick and target neutral color. So for example, we could try one of the white around the eyes, but then it makes the image a little bit too green for my liking. So I think what we're gonna do is to return to our toolbar, go into our drop-down box, click on S-Shot, and simply adjust it by looking at it. So I think just a little bit cooler and a little bit of magenta to remove some of the green cast. So I think something like this is looking quite good. The final two sliders here in the color is the saturation and vibrance, and depending on the effect you're looking for, you can push them up or down. Generally, where I'm looking for more natural result, I like to bring the saturation down to maybe -5 or -10. So let's say for this image to somewhere around -5, -6. And then bring the vibrance up. So I just bring the vibrance to something like +10. What we're doing by that is that we bring in the overall saturation down and then we pushing some of the lower tones up by using the vibrance slider. Finally, I'm quite happy with the result. I would maybe add a little bit of warmth back. And once we're done adjusting the color section of our Develop Raw tool, we simply have to click on the top of it to apply to the image. And then we can continue with some other editing by using some other tools that are available in Luminar NEO. If I ever want to go back and adjust the Develop Raw tool, I can simply click on the Edit tab on the top of our main toolbar. And by doing that, I can then jump back to the Develop Raw tool and make any adjustments I need right here. If I'm happy with it, I can go back to the tools, and that's where we're going to continue with the edit. So now we are done developing the image and we can use some additional tools to improve the overall image. For this, let's start by going into Enhance AI. We can click on it, and here we're going to try to see if the Accent AI will help a little bit. We can just push it, and generally I like to go quite high to start with, and then bring it slowly down to the result I like. It doesn't really make a huge difference, so we don't have to spend too much time here, but I think just a little bit with the 10 does a nice effect. We can see the before and after by clicking on the little quick preview eye icon on the top of the tool. And once we are happy with it, we apply it to the image by clicking on its name. It closes. By default, it jumps into the Edit tab, and we can move to another tool. There are two more things I want to adjust in the Essentials tools. First one is go into the Color tool. So we're going to click on it, open it, and then I want to use the HSL panel. Open the HSL panel by clicking on its section. And here what I want to do, I want to push some of the orange colors to make them stand out. For this, we need to go into our HSL panel, click on the Hue drop-down box, and choose the saturation. Again, what I want to do, I want to make the orange stand out, so to make it a little bit more saturated. So for this, we're going to jump straight into the orange color and just push the slider up. Again, look at the image, see what you like, and once you're happy with the result, you can leave it. We can also see if we can add a little bit of red and maybe also a little bit of yellow. Again, once we finish with the tool, we click on its name, it closes, applies, and we can move to another tool. Another tool which I would like to use is the Details tool. So I would like some of the details on the face of the bird to stand out even more. For this, we're going to use the Details tool. So we click on it, open it, and we're going to push the small details and medium details up. We need to be very careful as these sliders are very powerful, so I never really go more than +10, and maybe on a medium not even that far, somewhere around 6. Keep an eye on the face of the bird, which is getting more texture and more details, and it's looking great. But again, just like with the Develop Raw tool and the sharpening there, we need to make sure that we mask away the areas that we don't want to sharpen. We don't want to add any details to them. So for this, we need to click on the Details Masking, open it, and again, with the Details Protection, make sure that you go somewhere around 60 or 70. So this way, we make sure that we're adding the details only to the areas where there is edge, texture, or details. So this is it. We are done with the details. We can close it, apply it, and move to another tool. What we could do, we could go for the landscape, open it, and see if maybe the golden hour would help us a little bit to add a little bit of the golden glow. You can see that we're getting a little bit of the glow here, and it's looking quite nice. However, I don't want it that strong, so maybe just somewhere around 10. Once we finish, we close it, apply it, and we can move to the Creative Tools. In the Creative Tools, we're not going to do too much. All we're going to do here is maybe use a little bit of the Mystical tool. So let's click on it to open it and just adjust the slider to add a little bit of the mystical glow everywhere else other than the face of the bird. It brings a little bit more attention towards the main subject and make it look all nice and all together. So again, let's see the before and after, and I think it's looking great. Close it to apply it, and that's pretty much it for the edit here. However, before we're gonna finish, let's use two more tools. First one, let's jump into the professional tools all the way on the bottom of our main toolbar. And here we're gonna use the Supercontrast tool. In the Supercontrast tool, let's bring a little bit of the highlights contrast, just to make them a little bit darker, as well as the mid-tones contrast. So somewhere around here. Now again, let's have a look before and after. It's looking great. And the final touch, as always, is to use the Vignette tool. So we're gonna go back to the Essentials. And here in the Essentials, we're gonna use the Vignette tool. Simply open it, and we're gonna actually adjust the center point of the vignette. So click on Choose Subject, and then click somewhere around the head of the Puffin. After you finish with this, we can come to our Amount slider and bring it down until we start to see some of the vignette appearing. So I think in our case, somewhere around 40 is looking good. Let's have a look at the before and after. We can still adjust the position of the vignette. We can also still adjust the amount. We can also adjust the size. And if we really want to go further with the vignette, we can open the advanced setting, adjust the roundness to see what we prefer, and maybe add a little bit of feather to it. Now we're going to close this. And looking at the image, I really like the result. However, it's looking a little bit too warm for me, a little bit too yellow. So for this, we're going to go back to our Edit tab. And we're going to jump back to our Develop Raw tool. Here in the Develop Raw tool, we're going to go into the color section and we're going to bring the temperature a little bit down. So just very slightly. So something like this. Now what I can do, I can go tool by tool and see where is most of the warmth coming from. So the Enhance AI is not really bringing too much of the warmth back. The color is looking still quite nice. Details, no. Landscape, yes, it's the landscape where we're getting lots of the warmth. So we bring the golden hour down to somewhere around 5 to make it more like the original image. We close it, go back to our Vignette Tool, and that's us done with the edit. We can go back to our tools and we can see the before after by going to the bottom of our screen and click on the little eye icon here. Simply click on that and see the before and after. And the difference is huge. So there you have it. This is how you edit your raw files directly in Luminar NEO, starting from the Developer tool all the way to the creative section and professional section of your main toolbar.
And now it's time to get your gift. If you want to get access to our Luminar NEO shortcut cheat sheet, all you need to do is to head to our website cleverphotographer.com/luminargift. And there you can download the cheat sheet and start to use it right away. And there you have it. So I hope you had fun and I hope you learned something new. If you did, please make sure that you like, comment and share our video. And also don't forget to subscribe to our channel so we can keep creating content like this. For today, thank you very much for watching. My name was Jakub and I can't wait to see you in the next video.